every gay man knows at some point in their childhood, certainly by puberty, that what their attractions are, but admitting it to oneself pre-Stonewall was a whole other story. When I was at Andover, you would think, oh, you're in an all-boys prep school, you must have had a lot of sex. Well, actually, no. So I had no sex at Andover, but I certainly had anxiety attacks. When I got to Yale, they were, not dissipating. So finally, I got to the point where I just had to tell my parents. I just couldn't face them. The best thing to do was just write them a letter. So I wrote them a letter. And so I got this phone call back. And my father said, your mother's just been crying for 2 days. Like, I made my mother cry. You should feel guilty. But then he really laid it on to me. You are jeopardizing the family's security and clearance. My father was a research aeronautical engineer for United Aircraft Research Laboratories, now UTC. Back then, if you had a gay son, the FBI would probably find out and question your security clearance because it was all about blackmail. Well, I told my father, you can't have blackmail if I'm out. It's like blackmail is if I'm trying to keep it secret, right? Well, he wasn't buying that. It was not a happy situation, not at all. So then they came down, and it was, curiously, my birthday, I think. So they had to come down and take me out to dinner, but it wasn't going to be an easy dinner because there was a topic we had to discuss. And it got heated to the point where before I finished my dinner, I got up and walked out of the restaurant. With my first boyfriend, Jacob, that summer we spent in Hartford. They couldn't even bear to see his face. They would want to take me out, but obviously not with my boyfriend. So they would come to the curb in the car and send my brother out to ring the doorbell, lest they even see my boyfriend. That's just how extremely uncomfortable they were with this situation. There was a point along the way, and I was living in San Francisco, where there was an exchange of letters. Because back in those days, long distance was a little expensive, so people were still reading handwritten letters. It was a different era. So I just put it to them, why can't you just completely accept me as a gay man? 2 letters came in the envelope, one from my father and one from my mother. So my mother's letter was, and she's like an ex-Catholic and very stuck in her ways. It's just against her principles. I'll always love you, but I just can't really accept homosexuality. And that's just what's going to be real for me. I'm sorry, like that. And my father's letter was, I could actually accept you intellectually. I can get there. I can love you unconditionally and love you as a gay man. However, I'm married to this woman, and I feel because we're married at this point, many, many years, decades, that we have to have a joint position on this. I kept both those letters because, I thought my father's letter was actually quite infuriating. Come on, Dad. Just like, what? You're just going to defer to your wife's prejudices? What does that mean? That's crazy. But I thought to myself, eventually they're going to need me more than I need them. And of course I was right, because when they were dying in the nursing home, I was the one to come visit. Things by then had really come around. They even were accepting of Torrance. Now, Torrance is just so charming. And by then, they had gotten over the idea that I was going to have black boyfriends. So suddenly I had a black boyfriend that was charming, that was an Andover grad, that was making, at that point, by the time they met him, good money. And there was a reconciliation. So then finally Torrance became part of the family. And, things like their 50th wedding anniversary. There we all are. My brother with his, at that point, Asian girlfriend, then wife, Torrance and me, my sister with her Norwegian-American husband and the two nieces. And there we were, one big family. But that took a good long while. That took from 1970 to, the 90s. It took like 20, 25 years for them to finally get there. Look, time heals all. And if I got a story to tell, a conclusion to the story, if you're having trouble with your parents, if you got enough years, chances are time will heal everything. Because it's what I said when I moved to San Francisco. Eventually, they're going to come around. Eventually, they're going to need you as they're getting to a point in life. They're going to look to, who is my progeny? Who's going to take care of me? Who still loves me? Those basic questions will bring them around. And they did. It did bring them around.